mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Richard just handed me an incredible article that I was trying to read during the 70-second break. I'm going to read this in the next break and start covering it with Robert David Steele that's joining us. Washington strips New York's Fed's power. And I was talking to some folks involved with the Federal Reserve just last week. I'll leave it at that, at dinner. And we were discussing the major power struggle out of the Dallas and Kansas City Fed with other Fed branches, the other 9, against the New York Fed, and how angry they are at the QE Unlimited, and they believe it's hurting the country. And I was sitting there with, I'd say high level for the Federal Reserve, not super high level, but pretty big in one of the regional branches. I'll just, their names out there. And we were talking to some other folks. Let's leave it at that. And they said, look for some big stuff to be happening. My life's getting too weird. I remember Buzz Aldrin telling me over the phone. He's been on the show before, but telling me over the phone. Telling Charlie Sheen over the phone. See, truth is so much weirder than fiction. That they were going to crash an Indian probe in and discover water, but that they'd already told them where to crash the probe because they discovered water there in the 60s. And then like 6 months later, I'm walking through an airport, and it's like Indians to crash probe to try to find water. And then months later, they find the water. And then I had, of course, the talk show host on a few weeks ago who has on his show that the chief economist for the Federal Reserve, period. And he's had the Dallas head on. What's that guy's name? I don't have a teleprompter. I can't remember names all the time. Who was the fellow I had on last week who has the radio show, been on the show many times? He helped us get Bill Ayers on. No, it wasn't Peter Schiff. Dan Colefall. Thank you. Thank you. And we need to get Dan Colefall on, like a 10-minute pop about this to see what intel he has, because he was hinting at some of this. I mean, here's the deal. A lot of people in the Federal Reserve, even if they're not good guys, they don't want to wreck the golden goose. The globalists do to bring in an even bigger world government. You got to break eggs, make an omelet. And they also don't want to get the blame when this thing finally goes under. So there is big infighting going on. And then I just got deer in the headlights by this announcement, Wall Street Journal. That is over the top. We need to post this article right now on Infowars.com. This is really big. This is like a 20-page article. I don't know how I'm supposed to read all this and then cover it. Wow. Seismic. I said I was going to your calls, but I got blindsided by that. Brian in Virginia, thanks for holding. You're on the air. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, brother. What do we do about this move towards dictatorship?
God sure picked a strange time for me to be here.
Brother, are you drinking some whiskey this morning?
No.
Well, you sound ultra relaxed. Did you just smoke a big old doobie?
No.
All right, well, go ahead, brother. What's on your mind? We love you, Brian. Go ahead. Tell us what you called in about. The next shoe to drop.
Hold on.
That's a prank caller right there. We don't screen the calls, and I used to do nighttime radio, and the callers were incredible because people are home from work. And a lot of our callers are great as well. It's just they have to call while they're at work. And we don't really screen the calls, but maybe we should if somebody sounds like they've had a gallon of cough syrup. Because I guess we do screen calls. In fact, it's hard to change something once you haven't been doing it for a while, but I want the calls screened from now on. I want our phones to sound good and just ask them what they're calling about and get them to talk and make sure they can talk. Because our audience is incredibly smart. You hear them sometimes on a topic they'll call, and it's amazing. But I swear, I love you to death, but man, if you're sitting there drinking Jack Daniels, maybe you work the night shift. A lot of our people, tell me, oh, I work the night shift, and then I go to bed at 5 a.m., and then I get up at 10 or 11, listen to your show. Or maybe you get off at 6 or 7 in the morning. That's equivalent to 8 at night for you. You have some Jack Daniels. I totally understand it. Not knocking you. Enjoy yourself. You're in there grilling some steaks up, drinking some, Jim Beam or whatever it is. Just the difference is this is not the drunk line. It is not the line for being drunk. Thank you so much for joining us. I think we know the answer to a 1984 society is a 1776 spirit. We have to start acting like free men and women. We have to start valuing due process. We have to start valuing open societies. And somebody that promotes that is Robert David Steele, who leads major movements for open, free, open source internet. He is a former Marine, CIA case officer, U.S. spy, hacker, CEO of Open Source Solutions Network, Inc., 2012 candidate for Reform Party presidential nomination. Currently, he's the CEO of Earth Intelligence Network, an accredited educational nonprofit. Robert is known for his advocacy of open source intelligence, teaching 7,500 plus mid-career officers from across 66 governments, and is today the foremost proponent of applied collective intelligence, which integrates holistic analytics, true cost economics, and open source everything. The latter, an engineering and information management approach that is affordable and scalable. His most recent book is the Open Source Everything Manifesto, Transparency, Truth, and Trust by betaiota.net or bigbatusa.org. Now, he wanted to come on today, and I wanted to get him on about a bunch of subjects. We're going to cover the waterfront, about fixing our election system, getting past the Jeb Bushes and Hillary Clintons, and getting real issues in there that don't divide people but bring us together for real prosperity. We'll talk some about that with him. He's also thinking about running for president with the Libertarians. But he's a real expert from covert operations in the Middle East. He knows Iran. He knows the al-Qaeda type folks out of Saudi Arabia, which are ISIS and ISIL, the Islamic State. He knows a lot of the players. So he can give us really an expert. He's not one of these CIA guys that was like a desk jockey or all the new generation that's where they've tripled the size of their operatives just to run around and act cool and wear black sunglasses. He's actually worked with the Marines, the Army, and actual operations all over the Middle East, so he can speak to what he thinks is going on, because you've got double-crossing Iran, double-crossing Saudi Arabia, the West funding ISIS under the Free Syrian Army and then not funding it, but are they? And the Iraqi president says they have proof that they are. And so is it a triple cross, a double cross? Or is it really just cause a destabilization civil war between the Arabs and the Persians? Where is all this going? Because I've never seen such a fog of war hanging over this, and I'm pretty good at analyzing what's happening and what's unfolding. What's going to happen when ISIS, as the FBI says they will, hits the U.S.? Will anyone point out that we gave them the weapons? The motive, of course, is let them attack us to take our liberties. A form of false flag. But then I say, what is the answer to the dictatorial move by government, internet power grabs, opening up the borders outside of law? Well, the Wall Street Journal has the headline, Washington strips New York Fed's power. The New York Fed, folks, is the private arm that makes most of the decisions. This would actually be a U.S. government takeover, partially, of the Federal Reserve. This just came out 30 minutes ago. I'm stunned, trying to read it during breaks. It's a long 16-page article. Secret triangle document gives control of bank regulation to committee. And I'm not even saying this is a good thing right now. The committee is run by Fed governor, which is calling the shots in an oversight of banking titans such as Goldman Sachs Group and Citigroup, Inc. So is this good or bad? All I know is this. There are major movements happening right now. It's been said many times that more happens in a year than happens in the previous 50, or more happens in a month than happened in the last 10 years. We're entering, as we go towards the singularity, a lot of sub-singularities or waypoints, and everything's compressing. And I'm seeing movement, for good, for bad, you name it, just accelerating to light speed everywhere. And this is a time when good people can get involved and really change history. The world has been unfrozen and put into a type of flux where it's being remolded. But if we understand that we can change things and we can get involved and we can actually control our destiny, then we can change the world. But if we believe that we're just passive spectators, it's game over. So I threw out a lot there. What's happening geopolitically? Why are things moving so quick? For Mr. Steele, there's so much to cover here. What do you want to hit first?
Well, let's start with the government being in enemy hands. The greatest threat to U.S. liberty and U.S. prosperity is the U.S. government. ISIS is a theatrical threat. It's funded by Saudi Arabia. It's trained by CIA. More people will die in the next 2 years to U.S. police brutality than will ever, in 10 years, die to ISIS.
Continue. You've got the floor. Break it down.
Well, let me focus on why you invited me in the first place, and then we can go to Google as the Ministry of Truth and that other stuff. I am putting together a nonpartisan movement called Open Power, and the tiny URL / is Open Power, and that'll get people right to the book and the